Good morning, Trumptopia. A special segment of the Almost Daily Zencast. Hosted by the incorrigible Mr. Zappa. Let's talk Trump.
Good morning, and as always, thank you for tuning in. What the fuck just happened, yo? This weekend was, I've used the phrase before, but it's like I've never used it before. This was a clusterfuck of fucking crazy bullshit. I don't even know where to start. Right? And I mean on all fronts. From every direction. On every level. A clusterfuck of bullshit, people. Americans are busy shooting Americans while the President of the United States of America was busy hanging out with three, let's be generous here, three leaders of countries where, well, I don't think most Americans would enjoy living. But photo ops are so much more important than human rights or safety or freedom. Photo ops. So, okay. It is indeed a fascinating historical fact that dear old Donald Trump, the unimpeachable Donald Trump, is the first sitting president to set foot in North Korea. Cool. Whoop-de-fucking-do. Did North Korea stop being North Korea? I don't think so. I'm not there, right? I can't take pictures of how fucked up things are in North Korea. But according to one side of the ideological echo chambers of echo chambers, supposed facts seem to indicate that for all the ass-kissing and blustering over and writing of beautiful letters back and forth, for all the bromancing, North Korea is still being North Korea and doing horrible things and, not keeping the promises that they didn't really make. From my perspective, it seems like the two of them are trying to play each other. And so they each think that they've got the upper hand, and who is stringing who along, who knows, right? As long as those beautiful love letters keep flowing back and forth, that must mean progress, right? Never mind that brilliantly fucking obvious moment with Putin, where Trump, what's the right word here? Where he sarcastically, is that the right word? Where he, words fail. I'm actually kind of still reeling from everything. I tried to catch up, because I took a couple days off to not go too crazy. And I've spent the last few hours going, what the fuck? And that moment when he's like, don't mess in our elections, laughing, and it was a throwaway line. It was a throwaway line like, haha, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, do what you want. I said it there, okay? I said it. I said, don't interfere with our elections. I said it. You can't say, and this is one of those delightful sticking points that Trump is, if he's got a genius anywhere, is in creating these moments where a truth is wrapped up in bullshit, and bullshit is wrapped up in what's left of the truth, so that you can no longer tell the difference between the two. Yeah, okay. He literally, physically said to Russia, to Putin, the president of, don't interfere with our elections. Now, was that the kind of statement? I mean, was there gravitas to that statement? Was there a sense of weightiness, of accountability, of we're going to keep an eye on you and we're really going to hold you accountable? No, I mean, it was as meaningless as a statement as "you're fired" at the end of The Apprentice. No one got fired. I mean, I guess technically whoever got booted from the show got fired from that show, but they were all going to get booted from the show, right? Only one person makes it at the end. As if those two moments weren't enough. I don't even have the words to describe how obvious and ridiculous the moment with Putin. I mean, that moment this weekend with the two of them, this knowingly facetious, dare I say, shit-eating grins that the two had, and they had a moment there. I wish I had tape. I wish I could play it. I mean, it's a podcast, so there'd be no audio because it was just like people in the background trying to ask questions. But on the video, you can see they look at each other in the eye. The two men, these two, arguably the two most powerful men in the world, they look at each other like, I don't know, man. To me, the only way I could describe it is like two bullies giving each other the high five or giving each other that knowing look of like, yeah, we just pulled the wool over their eyes and now they don't think we're the bullies anymore. That's what it looked like. Now that's, I mean, obviously wild and random, and I can't read minds, right? I'm just describing my own emotional reaction to the surface optics. So, an empty photo shoot with a dictator, and then an empty statement to a president that might as well be a dictator. I mean, how many presidents do you know that you call a legitimate president that keeps bouncing back and forth between president and prime minister, like he's been both for how many years now? On any clear-minded person, at least before this era, Trump, could look at that and go, well, there's some shenanigans there, man. I mean, you can't just keep switching those two jobs back and forth and pretending that you're not trying to be in power indefinitely. And is that not one of the baseline attributes of a would-be tyrant? I don't know, right? I can't read minds. Maybe Kim Jong-un. I'm sorry, I didn't sleep much yesterday, so maybe what does he call himself? I don't think he's the president of North Korea. Maybe the leader of North Korea and maybe the leader of Russia really, really do care about their people and really, really do want the best for, the greater good of their countries. Maybe Trump does too. I mean, it's incredibly unlikely. It's incredibly improbable, but it's not impossible that deep down in their minds, they believe that they really do care and they believe that they really do want what's best for everyone. But how many people are dying around the world right now? Not from natural causes. Set aside all the natural causes. Everybody gonna die, right? Like we're all gonna fall over dead one day. How many people are dying in conflicts that either our country or Russia started? How many people are dying in prison cells because of corrupt justice? How many people are dying because of the toxic waste we pump into the air? How many people are dying because we've ruined our infrastructure? How many people are dying because we still think selling ourselves toxic booze is a fun thing? And mind you, I have enjoyed my fair share of booze, but if you really stop and look at it, it's a ridiculous thing that we cherish. We cherish booze. We're literally drinking toxic waste, and we love it. We love it. We love poisoning ourselves. Ooh. So there's so many issues. There's so many things going on in the world. And what does Trump do? He sucks up to Putin. He sucks up to Kim. And he sucks up to, what's his name? What's that fancy name they get, the MBL or MLB? To the Prince of Saudi Arabia, right? This is what he's doing. He's sucking up to the people that 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, most everybody in this country would have agreed, yeah, they're not the greatest people. Now, his thesis, the great orange leader's statement that I alone can fix this, seems to be contingent on a charismatic approach. And, you know, on paper that makes sense. But it's kind of like, with anything, if you just wish for something, it ain't never gonna happen. If you just dream of achieving something without doing any real work, it's not actually gonna come to pass. If you just pray for something without putting the meaning and the intention behind those prayers into action, nothing's going to come out of it. If you just do photo ops and you just suck each other's asses and you just write pretty letters and you just pretend to be pals on TV, what have you solved? I humbly propose to you that nothing was solved by any of those events this weekend. Now, let's be fair. On the other end of the spectrum, we had what very comically and ironically reminds me of the clown car circus show of the Republican Party's over-bloated primary contest back when Trump, was name-calling and belittling everyone that supports him now. I'm going to do a special on the Democratic debate, but I kind of wanted to let it play out right now. I will make this commentary. I find it really, really interesting that the focus of the coverage is on the racial tensions as exposed by Joe Biden's baggage. And bless his heart, he's got a decent defense not for the praising of the segregationists, but for having to deal with them and work with them, right? That's arguably what governance is in theory supposed to be about. Working with those you disagree with to find common ground for the greatest good. Okay, so that's a reasonable defense for putting up with people that you disagree with. But I don't want to go off on that rabbit hole. I don't want to litigate that discussion. It was a valid discussion, and Kamala Harris made some, strong and valid points. What I find fascinating is that the coverage has been about that, and the woe is me, is this going to ruin Joe Biden's odds? And yet, so many other interesting things were said out loud on that stage. I haven't seen anybody, and now of course I can't watch every outlet, and I can't read every article, and I can't view every clip on the internet. But from what I've managed to scan through since the debate, these are the things that stand out that have not been discussed. No one's really talking about how openly Bernie Sanders is calling out the military-industrial complex. To the best of my understanding, I could be wrong. I mean, other politicians like to talk tough about the NRA. Now, the NRA is designed for that. The NRA has two jobs: to pump out propaganda and to be the heat shield of protection to those who actually profiteer and manufacture the weapons that we're all so eager to butcher ourselves with. And I don't know, while other people might, pat themselves on the back for standing up to the NRA, which is laudable. That's a good thing, standing up to the NRA. Who else is really calling out the bigger monster behind them? The war profiteers. I don't know. So that's neat that he's doing that. And he's always done that. And yet no one ever talks about it. You notice that? They talk about the socialism problem. That's what the coverage has been about. His response to socialism, which was when who was it? Was it Rachel Maddow, I think? Put that question to him. You're going to be labeled a socialist, and they're going to say stuff about socialist this and socialist that. And he turned it right into well, listen, this is what Donald Trump is doing. And we have to stop that, right? And quite honestly, if we're going to be calling people socialists, the right-wing agenda has long been a socialism for the corporate profiteers that profiteer on everything. But that's a whole nother rabbit hole. I just find it fascinating that the coverage doesn't ever stop and go, Bernie Sanders just said that we've got to stand up to the military-industrial complex. Let's do a big discussion on that. Who are these military-industrial complex types, and why do we have to stand up to them? The other politician, and forgive me, I should have done better due diligence. I cannot remember right off the top of my head her name, but she was, on the second night of the debate, she was the woman all the way on the left-hand side of the screen. I had never seen her before in political circles, and I didn't see the whole debate yet, so that's why I'm withholding extended commentary. I want to sit down and really sit through it all. I might do like a blow-by-blow as I watch it, but this stood out when I dipped into it. I'm like, oh, it's on right now? Shit, I forgot. I'm going to check it out. And I sat with it for a few minutes. I was, amazed that Bernie Sanders is openly talking about the military-industrial complex and how that's at the root of all our problems. And then, conversely, forgive me for not remembering her name right now, but the woman running for office that was all the way at the left-hand side of the stage, she called out Donald Trump for his hate-mongering. She said, basically, Donald Trump has harnessed hate for political purposes, and my response to that is to harness love for political purposes. Wowzers! My jaw drop at that, because whoa, I'm of two minds there. First of all, wow, a politician talking about love as an important value. When was the last time you heard that? Other than, you gotta love your country, right? But she wasn't talking about love of country. There's nothing wrong with. Love the place you live in, right? You got to, because you live there. But she was talking about love in the agape sense, in the sense of loving for one another as human beings. Now, where I was where I found that challenging, where I was caught off guard, is like, ooh, you're going to harness it for political purposes? While at first I wanted to applaud her for going, yeah, speak out, sister, talk about love and how that's going to solve real problems. But whoa, harnessing it for political purposes, well, that just feels like taking the solution and turning it upside down and like fucking it right in the butthole until it's not a solution anymore. Because just look around. Look at anything and everything that has been harnessed for political purposes. What do you get? A clusterfuck of bullshit is what you get. Politics, as I was saying in my previous segment, is the art of getting away with whatever the fuck bullshit you can get away with. So I worry that even if she's well-intended, even if she's rooted in some deep conviction that we really need to make America love again, wouldn't that be a brilliant slogan for her to take on? Make America love again. Make America loving again. My concern is the moment you try to harness love for political purposes, well, I see two things. Harnessing something is limiting it. And taken to an extreme, it's slavery, right? Like, there is an altruistic version, right? We harness the power of the sun. We harness the power of steam or the wind or whatever. Yeah. Okay, cool. That only can be, I feel, really, truly altruistically good when it's an inanimate object that you're harnessing. And even then, I mean, look around at how much of Mother Earth we harness for our purposes, political or otherwise. And what does that leave us with today? Millions of species going extinct every fucking couple of years. Toxic waste piling up everywhere. An island made of trash that's officially larger than the main continent of Europe. That's us harnessing nature for political purposes, for economic purposes. What would we do to love if we harnessed it that way? If we enslaved love? Now, I'm not saying that's what she was thinking. What I am suggesting is that's what corruption does. Power corrupts. And these people seek power. It's always boggled my mind because it isn't a left-right isolated thing. A politician will stand at a podium and tell you there's something wrong with politics, so vote me into office. There's something wrong with Washington, D.C., so you've got to send me to Washington. But yet, I mean, how long have we been sending people to Washington? How long have we been voting people into office that make, explicit promises and then don't keep them? People on both sides get really mad when I say all politicians are puppets and both sides of the political divide have been corrupted and hijacked. I mean, this pisses off everybody. And I'm always sensitive to that, although people probably don't care to see that. But frankly, no matter how well-worded, no matter how well-intentioned they may seem, this is the pattern I've observed over and over and over again my entire life. A politician will promise you the world while running and taking your money. And then somehow, magically, between day 100 and day 7,000 of their time in office, they start to break their promises. They start to deliver other goods than the ones they sold us. They start to, and I hate to use this word because it's meant to be a good word, right? We want to compromise. We want to create compromise so we can meet in the middle. But then they start compromising their own integrity. The thing I mean when I say they all are puppets or they all become puppets, it's not that they're all evil. They're all people. They're all human beings. Human beings are not born evil, I don't think. I could be wrong. It's one of those chicken or the egg catch-22 type scenarios where you really don't know where to pin the moment when some innocent newborn becomes a monster. But how do you explain the pattern, right? Donald Trump made a lot of promises. I've done, I think, 2 episodes now, tapping into some fact-based reporting that's been verified and fact-checked about how many promises he's kept. While he may be a record-breaking liar in office, he might be the, record-holding president for promises broken. I haven't known a president in my lifetime that actually kept a majority of his promises. Something deeper is going on, friends. Something deeper than any of the surface bullshit that they want us to be enthralled by or upset by. Both sides are being played against their own middle. And it just seems to me like what we really need is clarity, not finger pointing. Everyone's busy saying, well, if the immigrants weren't stealing our jobs, or if the white supremacists weren't so evil, or if these guys weren't doing that, or those people would just change this. We love to blame society. But what the fuck is society, friends, but you, me, and everybody else? There is no separation. I am not separate from society any more than you are separate from society. To blame society or one of its constituent subgroups is to blame something other than ourselves. And there is no one else to blame but ourselves at all as a collective. Myself, as much as you or anybody else, must hold ourselves accountable for where we are as a human species. It's easy to say, well, I'm not responsible for what some asshole did 5 generations ago. And no, at an individual level, you couldn't win that argument because this body is not that body. But at a collective level, we are one people. We are one species, and we keep doing the same crazy, maddening things to ourselves and each other. And we keep proposing ideas that are bound by and limited to the very boxes that we're complaining about. It's, I think, the thrilling build-up to the cliffhanger that will be the end of Act 2, right? We talked about Act 1, which was everything leading up to and into Trump taking office. And Act 2 was, whatever, his 100 days on as he pivots from self-congratulation to proceeding to break as many promises as possible and yet feed the base the red meat it wants to gnaw on. Mind you, the Democrats do the same. They probably do it in a more comfortable, palatable, eloquent, seductive way than, say, Trump's really blunt, really obvious methods. But here's my evidence that both sides are essentially doing the same thing, right? Not only is it nearly impossible to point to some proof from our government that one party is better than the other. It's impossible. There's surface evidence that would lead the base to believe that their political party is the righteous one, right? The Democrats have got civil rights. The Republicans have got the preservation of a white Christian identity. I know that those are not apples and apples. I'm not comparing those two subjects. I'm comparing the way in which the base is fed red meat using those two subjects in order to feel convinced that their party and their party alone is the correct one, the righteous one, the one on the quote-unquote right side of history. But when you step out of the echo chamber and look at the political history, the facts of the history, it takes two wings to fly. It takes two parties to pretend to be beating each other up to keep us distracted enough for the real agenda to get played out. And it's not that they're going to kill us all. If they were going to kill us all, then we'd be dead. The real agenda is to get us to kill ourselves, to kill each other. The real agenda is to get us to roll over on our backs in the name of profit, money, greed. And, I mean, it's clearly working. It is clearly working. My entire life, I've heard people who don't like illegal immigrants claim that they are stealing our jobs. How can they steal a job? It's not like they walk into a place and go, "Give me the job or I'll shoot you." And then everyone goes, "Oh, okay, here, take the job." No. It's the corporations, the employers, large and small, that choose higher profits and therefore rely on underpaying immigrant workers, whether legal or otherwise. The framing of 2020, that's going to be this big cliffhanger. What's going to happen? What will 2020 do? And we're going to get led along by the nose right up into that election. And then I'm fairly certain that something stupid is going to happen. Something beyond dumb. And then, doesn't matter who's president. Whether Trump wins, or whether an old white Democrat wins, or a young person of color wins, a younger, none of them are that young, whether it's a man or finally a woman. Something's going to happen either right before or right after the election, so that irrespective of who wins, the echo chambers will have some new matrix of division to keep us divided with, some new set of issues to pit us against each other. What are the candidates? Well, I think that there might, if Trump himself and many of his supporters out in the public realm have said that if Trump gets impeached or if Trump loses, there will be violence. What happens if he wins? The left is ginned up. The left is seeing red. The left is angry. Not everybody, of course, right? I'm the one who's always like, hey, we can't paint every group in monolithic tones. There's diversity in every subset. There's a range of opinion and phenomena within every group, no matter how big or how small. But if you look at the loudest voices, if you look at the pundits that set the tone, and you look at the tension that keeps building between the two ends of the spectrum, at the support level, the extreme ones sound very disturbingly alike to one another. The left is calling the right names, suggesting that they're crazy, implying that they want to destroy our way of life. And the right is not so much suggesting or implying, but Trump himself has literally said out loud, this will probably not be a word-for-word quote, but he said out loud, in public, on television, the left is full of hate and they want to destroy us. These are fellow countrymen he's talking about. America is busy hating itself. And I don't know about you, but 5,000 years worth of history bears out a few things, I think, that can be measured and verified. That hate is viral. Hate infects others and perpetuates hate. Even sane-sounding anger, even rationally well-explained hatred, breeds more hatred, traumatizes those who cling to that hatred. I don't remember who actually said this, but it's been attributed to Buddha and several other wise guru-type guys. But hate is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. Hate is like holding on to a hot burning coal and expecting the other person to get burned. The pattern is like this Rorschach blot where the two wings don't look exactly alike, but they're clearly both doing the same kind of work. I don't know, that was a terrible analogy. Who uses Rorschach blots anymore anyways? You flip through the news and Fox is busy trying to qualify the left's reporting as fake news. while simultaneously perpetuating entertainment as news, which is often riddled with fact-free content and biased, divisive, ideological propaganda dressed up as news. Simultaneously, on the left, there is this subtle yet powerful messaging that the right's kooky and ridiculous, and everything we do is nothing at all like them. Bullshit. Obama deported more people than any president in history. Kids were separated from their families and put in detention centers. It just didn't get as much attention. Every president in my lifetime has broken promises and slow-walked us into yet more war, while speaking the praises of the peaceful democratic process that keeps us safe. When I say that they're all puppets, I mean that there is a force strong enough to hijack those who seek power. And that is evident because the more powerful anybody gets, regardless of background, regardless of originating ideological self-identity, regardless of where they came from and who they were before they grabbed the power, once they get that power, no matter how much lip service, no matter how much blustering, no matter how much feel-good feels, no matter how many brilliant speeches, once those people get that power, it's the power that runs things, not them. And what is that power? Where does it come from? Why do we argue with each other about who we should put in power when we could just be organizing and solving the problems that we face? Gee, I don't know. Maybe because it's profitable. Maybe because the profiteers that corrupt everything are profiteering on it all. And even they, my friends, are puppets. Tune in to some of my past episodes where I go off on that subject. The puppeteer is not Putin. The puppeteer is not this tyrant or that tyrant, or this politician or that politician. The puppeteer or the puppeteers are not that secretive group that there's a conspiracy theory about, or the other secretive group that there's conspiracy theories about. The puppeteer is that little devil that lives inside each and every single one of us. Where does it come from? Why do we experience it? Why do we start out innocent and free of anger, hatred, bias, etc., etc., etc.? And then somehow magically those things all blossom inside us. It's because deep down, that's what the ideological programming encourages us to do. as many much wiser, much smarter, much more intelligent people than I have pointed out in the past, you really can't fight fire with fire. You really can't solve a problem with the tools you built that problem with. You cannot end gun violence by shooting everyone. And yet, the ideological echo chambers keep grinding away at this process of pitting ourselves against one another. I rambled long enough for this morning. Thanks for tuning in. It was not a well thought out episode today. I'm literally just exhausted by what I just saw. Exhausted by the last year, the last 2 years, the last 10 years. I'm exhausted by a lifetime of asking these kinds of questions. How do we stop the madness? How do we hold those in power accountable for the way in which they wield that power? How do we reevaluate the very need to be in power, to put people in power over us? I'm not an anarchist because I'm not really into any ism, right? And anarchism is an ism, just like atheism is. I'm sure I've rambled about that in previous episodes. My whole life, I've looked around and asked, why do we keep clinging to these isms? Why do we fight each other over these ideological constructs? I have never gotten a satisfactory answer from anyone. The most common response is name-calling and insults. Doesn't matter which party, doesn't matter which side of the aisle, doesn't matter how spiritual, how religious, how humanist. When I ask these kinds of questions, the most common response is, fuck you, you're crazy. And yet, there has been 3 years of peace. Now, I guess that's an exaggeration. It's probably up to like 5 or 6 now, given that, odd and ends accrue if you're going to add up time. But there's only been let's give it a range, 3 to 6 years that one could say, hey, we have peace right now. We got peace. We're not engaged in a pointless war. How long has America been around? I think it's like 200 and some odd, almost 300 years, right? I mean, we only just celebrated the bicentennial not that long ago. This meat grinder merry-go-round of bullshit, it's custom designed and has been refined over decades and decades and decades, and dare I argue, maybe even centuries, to engage us in this way, to engage us in such a fashion that we can't see past our own fingers pointing blame. There are people in this country that literally think their ancestors had a righteous claim to this land they stole. There are people in this country who genuinely believe that white people are all evil. There are people in this country that genuinely believe that all illegal immigrants are all pure evil. let's stop and think about that for a real hot second here. I know I was going to wrap it up, but how many groups of people can be the ultimate evil? We have this nostalgic paradigm of the world coming together to stop a tyrant that wanted to take over the world. Now, I'm not defending any tyrant, right? And I'm not saying that that war didn't have some justifiable rationales. But at the end of the day, that war, which they sold to us, if you look in history, as the war to end all wars. And yet here we are, Somalia, Afghanistan. We might be getting into Iran soon. Never mind Israel and the Palestinian situation. That war didn't end shit. Yes, we stopped one tyrannical madman from marching all over the world and forcing us to follow his crazy ideological construct. But at the cost of too many lives. And to what end? We don't have peace. We have the illusion of peace for those who can afford to live in a bubble of illusion of peace. And millions upon millions of profiteering things happened. That was a poorly constructed sentence. My point is, let's back it up, because I'm talking about World War II. World War I. Remember, we've already done a sequel to the original. World War I was going to end all war. How long did it take to just get right back into it? World War II took, 5-6 years? At least American involvement time, I think. How long have we been at war in just our lifetimes? I don't remember a year that we weren't pointing guns and or shooting guns in other countries. People laugh at the idea that World War III might be right around the corner. It's easy to laugh when, you can afford your $8 latte and drive your fancy bling bling car that is pumping out toxic fumes that 7 million people die from every year. It's easy to say, there's no way, we're not going to get into World War III, when you turn a blind eye to places like Somalia and, all the hotspots in the world, which are effectively, if you put them all together as one collective action. I mean, the most accurate statement is not World War III is right around the corner. The most accurate statement is we've been in World War III since before I got to junior high. There are good people everywhere struggling against the seductive ego traps of hating each other over ideological constructs. And there are millions of people who have already fallen too far down that slippery slope. And they're busy hating their brothers and sisters because they don't believe in the same thing that they should. They don't look the same way as we do. They don't talk like we do. And while absolutely, yes, there are some good things that come out of the Democratic Party's efforts in being the, quote, good cop. But to me, that's just like saying, well, the Catholic Church does a lot of good things too. Yeah. 3,000 years of raping and pillaging and invading and conquering and killing and butchering people because they refuse to accept that ideological paradigm. But let's give them a pass because, there's still plenty of good things they do. The hard pill to swallow that, I'm not saying no one understands this. Plenty of people understand this. I'm not alone in this position. The thing is, we who speak this way are not allowed a mainstream platform. Except for Bernie. Bernie's getting away with it. I have not forgotten the debacle. I have not forgotten the mysterious scratch on his cheek. I have not forgotten that evidence indicates quite clearly that the DNC put their thumb on the scale, to say it politely. And yet, he still gets to say these things. Politics is theater. Politics is the original reality TV show from before we even had TV. But the moment we invented TV, whammo, politics was there. Center stage. Sweaty Nixon and sexy Kennedy in the first presidential televised debate kicked it off. That was the inaugural episode. That was the pilot episode of the longest running reality TV show, Mindfuck. Now, mind you, do not misunderstand me and do not accuse me of things that I am not doing. I don't hate these folks. I don't hate anybody. I'm just trying to point out that no matter how pretty the words or how outrageous the claim, the meta pattern here is one of profiteering on the conflict that we get caught up in. And forgive me for being a broken record, but if there's one thing that we kind of gloss over in our public discourse, it's that public discourse is not functioning as it could be functioning. Public discourse has become a fighting arena where we get to yell and scream and call each other names and feel self-righteous about being on the right team, being on the right side of history, being the good guys. But I assure you, my friends, that for every Democrat that is convinced that the Democrats are the good guys, there's a Republican who's as wholeheartedly convinced that the Republicans are the good guys. Because when you're inside the echo chamber, the people running your echo chamber are wearing the white hat for you. They only put on the opposite hat when they go dance like little paid monkeys. Well, no one pays the monkeys. Little enslaved monkeys for the other side. This becomes really clear if you bounce back and forth between, the three major channels. If you go Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC. That's what I'm trying to do, folks. Is to remind myself and anyone else willing to listen that these echo chambers are not the solution, but rather the very root and cause of most of our problems. And that those problems are created to distract us from the even deeper problems that we are not addressing. as horrific as the situation at the border is, it was created and amplified to be used as a political prop. As ridiculous as the fight over the right of women to make a choice regarding pregnancy is, I mean, that fight is ridiculous. And it's reaching new levels of extremes on both sides. Now, the left doesn't talk about this, but there are people on the left who get violent, just like there have been people on the right who get violent about this. And now we're literally at a place where prosecutors are threatening to prosecute pregnant women in situations like this situation that just happened. Two women got into a fight. One of them pulled a gun and shot the other. Who got arrested? The one that got shot. The one that did the shooting, nothing. Nothing. Why did the pregnant woman who got shot get arrested? Because somehow it was her fault that she got shot. They dress this up as protecting the innocent life of the unborn baby. But you know what I think it really is? And this correlates with other laws like Stand Your Ground and Open Carry. They're trying to absolve the shooter. They're trying to create legal ideological loopholes that say if you get shot by someone, it's your fault. Now, obviously, there are times in genuine, true self-defense that, yeah, some bad guy with a weapon was coming at me, I shot him. Then yes, sure. But the extension of the pretext of self-defense and the extension of this pretext of protecting the rights of an unborn person is leading us to a place where, if you really think about it, the next level is to say, well, if you felt your life was in danger, then it's not your fault. If that becomes law, it's going to be open season to shoot each other and hope that you can get away with saying, well, I felt threatened. And these laws are being put into place primarily by old white men who call themselves followers of Jesus Christ, believers in the Bible. I'm fairly certain that the commandment says, thou shalt not kill, full stop, period. Not, thou shalt not kill, except for in these extenuating circumstances, and especially if you feel threatened and the other person is of color. It's hard. Trust me, I don't say these things lightly. I'm not trying to be flippant. It's hard to tell anyone, your leaders, your politicians are fucking you. Even the pretty ones, even the nice ones, even the ones that you want to believe in. You know why they're fucking you? Because they're getting fucked. And it's hard because there are some really well-spoken, really passionate politicians out there that believe in their cause, believe that they're making things better. But you leave them in office long enough and suddenly you look back and go, oh wow, we went to war again and again and again. Well, certainly some of them have a proven track record of voting against war. You got to, right? Because if everybody bent over backwards without a word, it'd be too obvious. And I'm not crazy. I don't think that this is some human conspiracy. I don't think that there's enough money in the world to make that happen. This is deeper than our surface lives. This is deeper than our words and actions. This is energy. This is a hijacking at a spiritual level. It's funny because both sides of the left-right ideological echo chamber love to say that what they're doing is fighting for the soul of our country. They're fighting for the soul of this nation. How do you justify the fight? How do you save a soul through hatred? How do you save a soul with violence? How do you save a soul with legislation? To the best of my understanding, 30 years worth of research, mind you, and experimentation and investigation, personal attempts to prove and disprove religious and spiritual ideology, and to test that against political ideology. I am convinced, personally, that you cannot solve the problems with legislation. You cannot save my soul with Bible thumping. You cannot save the soul of any nation with guns or bombs or laws that tell you what to do. I think that the only thing that saves a soul is healing and forgiveness and growth and love and holding ourselves accountable to all our failings. If we want to save the soul of our community, we have to stop pointing the finger at one another and pretending that only that group is responsible. Only that group is evil and corrupt. Only that group is wrong and on the verge of becoming some horrible, tyrannical monster. We're stuck in this together. No matter what side of what fence you're on, that fence is dividing us from nothing. No matter which country you love, no matter which ideology you choose to believe in, we are not separate from one another, and we cannot solve anything without each other.
And that is the latest madness from behind the orange wall. Thank you for listening to GMT, a special segment of the Almost Daily Zencast. Stay woke, Trumptopia. Stay woke.